I don't know about you, but every time a new year comes rolling around nowadays, it actually makes me want to try and slow down, not speed up, which is way easier said than done, as we all know. Everyone's talking about goals, routines, next moves, and honestly, I'm over here thinking, what if I just listened a little bit better? Because there's a voice inside all of us, and that voice knows when something feels off. That voice knows when something feels right. And most of the time, it actually speaks before we overthink everything. So, as we step into this new year, maybe the question is not what is next. Maybe the question needs to be it's who or what we are listening to. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Light in the Darkness, episode 6. I'm really glad you're here today. Happy New Year to you all, and God bless 2026. It's really crazy how fast time seems to go by every year. It seems like each year goes by a little bit faster. This episode is not about New Year's resolutions, though. And, it's not about grinding harder. It's not about trying to reinvent yourself for the new year. No, I think it's about entering this year with intention. Real, sincere intention. Because as we all know, we live in a world that truly never stops. Never stops talking, opinions, expectations, distractions, noise everywhere. And somewhere along the way, we learned how to drown out the one voice that we all have inside of us that was actually meant to guide us in this crazy life. You see, scripture shows us something really important. God typically doesn't shout over the chaos in our life. He doesn't compete with all the noise going on. He waits. The prophet Elijah didn't hear God in the fire, not in the whirlwind, or not even in the earthquake. He heard him in a still, small voice. In fact, the prophet Elijah defines God as the conscious within. And I really believe that voice still speaks very clear today in all of us. Very often through our inner conscious, that quiet nudge, that gentle pull toward truth, toward love, toward alignment. So this year, instead of trying to control everything, which Lord knows I try to do way too much, how about what if we just learn to listen to that voice a little bit better? Not to fear, not to ego, not to the pressure to keep up, but to that quiet voice within that leads us closer to who we were always meant to be. So before we talk about changing our lives this year, let's talk about changing how we listen to that special voice that we all have within us. Let me ask you something. Honestly, how many of us have ignored that voice before and felt it later? You know what I'm talking about. That moment where something didn't feel right, a decision, a conversation, a relationship, a habit, and yet we pushed through anyway. Not because we didn't know, but because we didn't want to listen. I've been there more times than I can count. And here's what I've learned the hard way. Not every voice inside us is the same. Some voices rush us, some pressure us, some speak in fear, some speak in ego. Some of them sound loud, urgent, demanding. But the voice of God, the voice that truly aligns us, it does not bully us. It doesn't panic. It does not confuse. It's calm. It's steady. It's faithful. And it's patient. And that's why it's so easy to miss. Because when life gets loud, as it often does, the quiet voice doesn't fight for attention. It waits. We've trained ourselves to react to noise, notifications, deadlines, social media, other people's expectations. We're constantly responding, but rarely listening, me included. And the crazy thing is, we wonder why we feel disconnected. Disconnected from peace, disconnected from clarity, disconnected from God Himself. But what if the issue is not distance? What if it's volume? What if God hasn't gone silent? We've just stopped creating space to hear Him truly. For me, the moments where I've heard God the clearest weren't in big breakthroughs. They were actually in stillness. Early mornings, quiet drives, moments of prayer where I didn't have the words, so I actually didn't force them. I just listened. And honestly, a lot of those moments came when I was at my lowest point, when we lost Leo, when I was tired, when I was hurting, when I felt unsure or lost or empty. And that's something I've noticed over and over again. God does not wait for us to have it all together. In fact, some of the biggest God winks show up right when we feel like we're barely holding on. A conversation that comes out of nowhere, a door that opens up when it shouldn't, a sign that feels way too specific to be a coincidence. A sense of peace that makes no sense given what you're walking through in whatever situation. That's all from Him. That's all from that voice. Those moments don't always fix everything, but they anchor us. They remind us we are not alone. And sometimes that voice doesn't give us the answers we're looking for, but it gives us direction. A nudge to slow down. A pull to reach out to someone. Or maybe even a feeling to wait or to move or to trust. And then there are times that peace will show up before the situation changes, which tells me something important. God is not just in the present, in the breakthrough. He's present in the breaking. And that's how He often speaks. Not in paragraphs, not in explanations, but in His true, holy presence. Now, as far as learning the language of that quiet voice, here's something I've had to learn, and I'm actually still learning to this day. Listening to God is not about being perfect at all. It is not about being super spiritual. And it's not about having the right words in prayer. It's truly just about availability, opening up our hearts. Because the voice of God does not usually show up when we are frantic. It shows up when we finally stop running. And like it says in Scripture, be still and know that I am God. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable at first. I totally understand that. Stillness forces us to face ourselves. It exposes the noise we've been using to cope. It brings up the things we've been avoiding. But it also brings clarity. Because when everything else quiets down, you start to recognize which voice brings peace and which ones just bring pressure. The voice of fear demands immediate answers. The voice of ego demands control. The voice of the world demands performance. But the voice of God, it invites trust. And trust takes listening. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. And sometimes moment by moment. So let me make this real practical for a second. Listening to that voice, it does not have to look dramatic. It can be turning the music down while you're on a drive, sitting in silence for a couple of minutes before grabbing your phone, praying without asking for anything, paying attention to what keeps resurfacing in your heart, noticing what brings peace versus what drains you. And here's a really big one. Learning to wait before reacting. Because a lot of the regret in our lives comes from acting too fast. Instead of listening long enough, God knows I'm guilty of that at times. The quiet voice does not rush us. If something feels frantic, pressured, or forced, that's usually not it. Peace might not always feel easy, but it does feel steady. So as we step into this new year, what voice has been shaping your decisions? Is it fear? Comparison? Is it the need to keep up? Is it old wounds? Or is it simply just noise? Or is that quiet voice that keeps calling you toward truth, towards healing, towards love, toward who you really are? Because that voice hasn't left you, and it never will, because we are all created in the image of God. It hasn't given up, and it hasn't gone silent. We just need to block out that noise and sometimes turn the volume of life a little bit down. That voice will always be there waiting for space, waiting for your stillness, and waiting for you to listen. So with this new year, before you change your schedule, before you chase a goal, before you try to fix everything, maybe let's try and start here. Listen. Listen in the morning. Listen in the quiet. Listen when something doesn't feel right. Listen when peace just shows up out of nowhere unexpectedly. Because God is very active. God still speaks. Not in noise, not in force, but in His holy, true presence. And when you learn to recognize that voice, it changes how you move through everything in life. I promise you that. You guys, thank you so much for being here today. I love you all so much. I'm really looking forward to beginning this new year with you all. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for those of you that have been keeping up with the episodes. So, quick announcement. After this episode, I'm going to try and start having guests on the show, doing sit-down interviews, talking about their personal testimonies, their ministries, and where they're at with their faith and their lives. And a little sneak peek, I think the first person I'm going to be having on here is my wife, Viviana. Really looking forward to having her come on here and share her journey and her story with you. It'll truly be an honor. So stay tuned for that. God bless you all. Let's make it a fantastic year. put Jesus in your heart and let God take care of the rest. And as always, may you find light, even in the darkness. Take care, you guys.